With the 5200 shell, let's just, is this zoomed in? No, it's not. With the 5200 shell, because the 5200 is so big, in the past I've always put the composite S-Video jacks on the right side here. I'm not sure if that's what most customers would want. Again, this is my first customer 5200, which is pretty surprising given the number of consoles I've done for customers. Personally, I believe that having the jacks on the back of the system is a hassle, because the back of the system, and unfortunately my camera's not in a good position to record that, but the back of the system is slanted down on each side, and you can't mount the jacks through here because this is where the expansion port for the system is. Even though it was not used, soldering it there would, drilling through that would not be aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion, as well. Homebrew developers may take advantage of this at some point. Putting the jacks there would not be a good idea. Conversely, putting the jacks here on this side would also not be a good idea because it's slanted down. There's no way that I could possibly get them straight. I could put them on the very back here, but then that means if you open up the cover on the top of the system, you're going to see wires inside here, and that's not professional at all, again, in my opinion. So, the only thing I can think of that's left is to do it the way I've always done it, and that is to remove the RF modulator from the system and have the jacks on the side of the system, the right side of the system. That way it makes it a lot easier to connect the RCA jacks to the system. You don't have to turn the entire thing around, especially since this system is so big. That can be a problem. Not only that, but then you don't have to worry about interfering with the power connection on the back where the slanted plastic is. I don't have to worry, as someone who's modding the system, if I'm going to break the plastic because I'm drilling into a slanted edge. I'm going to do it right here. If you're a customer and you would like it somewhere else, I'd be happy to put them somewhere, put the jacks somewhere else, if that's possible. But for standard 5200 mods, I will always just have it right here. And the reason why is because that's the most convenient and the best looking as well, in my opinion. That was a really long explanation for something that's actually quite simple, but I wanted to explain that. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and drill the holes into the side of the system, as well as mount the RCA jacks and the S-Video jack. Alright, so I'm going to actually put what I just said in a different video. That's something that's been widely requested, so I thought I'd make a video about it. If you go watch it, and there probably should be a link, somewhere around there, you'll see why I made it a separate video. It's not something specific to the 5200, and anyways, I'm getting off track here. In order to mount the RCA jacks in the 5200, I'm going to remove the RF modulator. With the GTIA, pins lifted, it doesn't really matter whether the RF modulator is kept in the system or not. Either way, you're not going to get a picture from it anymore. So let's simply heat up each of those pads, and let's get rid of the RF modulator. Alright, we're done with that. Now, should be simple as just pulling this out. I think if you watch my channel, it's actually, less light is actually a little bit better there. If you've seen my more of my channel, you'll see how I remove RF modulators. With that being said, that doesn't mean it's easy. It does require some brute force. And I'm totally fine with being rough with these, because I hate RF modulators, and they hate me. You know what? No. RF modulators hate everybody. They are the bane of the video viewing world's existence, I guess I would say. Anyways, there we go. Got the RF modulator out. Alright, so the last thing we have to do is wire a 1 microfarad capacitor from pin 39 of the POKEY chip to audio out. The POKEY chip is right here, just for reference. But what I'm going to do quick is switch to, well, I'll show you this first. If you order from Electronics Sentimentalities, he'll probably send you a very small 1 microfarad capacitor, like the one here. I love these because the form factor is so small. So I keep these around for something else. It doesn't really matter how big the capacitor is because it's just going to be sitting right next to the RCA jack. But I keep these because they're small and they're useful for other things. And so instead, I'm going to be using a Panasonic 1 microfarad capacitor. So let's actually solder the wire onto this first and then solder it to the POKEY. Alright, so on the board, we are going to pin pin 37 of the POKEY while it is still seated in this socket, which is totally fine to do. You just want to make sure that you don't burn the socket that badly. So, if this is pin 1 here, that means that's pin 40. So, 40, 39, 38, 37. There we go. Now we're going to take our wire with our 1 microfarad capacitor, and we're going to solder the positive end of the capacitor to the POKEY chip. There we go. That is secure. So now all I'm gonna do is solder all of the RCA jacks in, which is pretty simple. So with the RCA jacks in place, the board in place, and the mod board in place, we now want to solder wires from the mod board to the RCA jacks. And you're gonna want to bend down each of the grounding tabs on the RCA jacks. You actually only have to ground 1 of the audio jacks since the system is not stereo. I'll explain that a bit in just a minute here. I also like to use solid core wire for the grounding tabs. It makes it a lot easier to thread through. And it's a lot easier to solder to the grounding tabs as well. we go. I'll just solder that in place. There we go. Now you can solder this to any ground location you want on the board, but since I have it out, I'm going to go ahead and stick the ground on one of the video grounds on the mod board. Alright, there we go. Now, since I'm here, we're going to go ahead and solder the chroma and luma, as well as the ground jack for S-Video. So make sure you know which one is chroma and which one is luma. It actually slips my mind. I believe if the jack is facing you, right is luma. Yeah, that sounds right. Right is luma. Alright, now soldering chroma. And now we're going to take another wire that I probably should have cut and stripped, now that I think about it. But we're going to take a wire from yellow or composite and solder that to the board and to the composite jack. Alright, it's soldered in on the board. Now we'll stick that there. And solder to the composite RCA jack. There we go. And one thing I forgot about, ground for the S-Video jack also has to get connected. So let's solder in ground for the S-Video jack. And there we go, the system's done. So let's zoom out and we can take a look. Oh no, the system's not done. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to take the 1 microfarad capacitor that is connected to the POKEY, and I'm actually going to quickly splice a secondary wire onto it, and I'll show you why in literally just a moment. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one side of this wire, or the wire that the secondary wire off of this cap is soldered to, and I'm going to solder that directly to the audio RCA jack. This really isn't usually how I'd ever solder this in these awkward positions, but I'm trying to record this, so that's why. Now we can just set that cap aside and let it dangle in the wind. I guess I would say. And now we take the wire that we spliced, and we're going to solder that to the secondary audio jack to give us dual mono audio. There we go. And now it's done. So let's take a step back and see how it looks. Alright, so here's how the finished product looks. It's a little bright. Let's move the light away. And hopefully that's close to how yours should look when you're done.